you ever had someone assume that you couldn't use a computer because of your visual impairment? Or perhaps you are fully sighted and you're wondering how the heck do blind and visually impaired people use their computers, read, and whatnot? Well, hopefully this video will shed some light on the issue. No pun intended. That's coming right up.
Low on vision, high on tech. CircleOfTheBlindMice.com.
Everybody, it's Tammy, your friendly and very productive blind mouse that likes to babble about technology. It's been a crazy week and I was going to slack on doing my vlog this week, but I decided no, I want to get this done, so here we go. So today's video is all about the different ways that visually impaired and blind people use computers. I mentioned a few vlogs ago that I've had some crazy misconceptions that I've experienced myself. I've also had friends that have had some misconceptions that they've experienced about their visual impairment and blindness in general and how we use computers and whatnot. And as I've been looking around at other fellow YouTubers, comments and videos and whatnot, I've come across some crazy comments, and I honestly believe that the people were being sincere, but they just didn't know. So first my thought was, how on earth do people not know this? But then I kind of took a step back and I'm like, well, this is every day for all of us. All of us visually impaired people, you know, we tend to hang out together. We know other visually impaired people, especially those of us who have been visually impaired for a long time, if not all of our lives. And this is just old news to us. But not everybody has that experience. There's a lot of people who've never met a blind person before, never met a visually impaired person before. And by the way, if you haven't seen my video about the different levels of visual impairment explained, be sure to check that out. It's available in this playlist, assuming you're watching this in a playlist. But yes, I wanted to talk about how we as visually impaired people use computers. And when I got to thinking, I thought, well, I bet you these people were thinking, well, they can't use Braille on a computer, so how are they reading? What it was, and what made me want to do this particular video was someone had commented, how is this blind YouTuber reading her comments? And I bet you they were thinking about Braille and going, well, you can't read Braille through a screen. I know there's touch screen, but you know, there's not an actual Braille monitor yet, although there actually is, which I'll get to in a second. So that's what I think where these people were coming from. So first of all, there's a couple of ways that we as blind and visually impaired people will use a computer. Now, people who cannot read print at all because they just have, their vision is so low that they can't even read large print, they tend to use voice systems, and one of the most common ones is JAWS. There's also a thing on Windows called Dragon Naturally Speaking, and there's a bunch of other ones that I can't think of right now because I defected from Windows about 9 or 10 years ago and switched to Mac. So now every single Macintosh computer comes with VoiceOver built in, as do all iPhones, iPads. Even Apple TV has it. It's built in. You don't have to pay extra for it, although you kind of do pay extra for it because Apple products are so expensive, but that's another video. So that is the primary way that blind people will read what's on their computer screen, as they have it spoken to them. There are, however, Braille displays, which I'll do another video about that another time. I was recently at a tech fair and I shot some footage of those, but there's also a thing called a Braille display, where the display will allow the user to enter Braille into the display so that it can be converted into regular, you know, printed text and then sent into their computer or their mobile device. But there are some Braille displays that will actually work in reverse, where whatever is on the screen on the computer, mobile phone, tablet, etc., can actually be put back into the display so that the user can read the comments. But most likely, now this YouTuber in particular, I don't know her personally, so I'm not sure, you know, if she uses a Braille display, but most likely she probably uses JAWS. That's pretty much every single blind person I know of that cannot use large print uses JAWS as their main speech reader. But don't kill me in the comments. I know some of you don't use JAWS. There's other choices out there, but that's the one that everybody I know, you know, uses. Now, for those of us who are on the low vision end of the spectrum, where we have some level of sight, but we are still classified as legally blind and visually impaired, We use screen magnification. Actually, we use a combination. Some of us will just use screen magnification. Others will use a combination of screen magnification as well as speech or voiceover. Myself, I am constantly flipping back and forth between speech and voiceover and magnification depending on which device I'm using. If I'm on my computer though, I am always using magnification. The only time I zoom out of the magnification is if I need to see the layout of the screen, because of course when we use magnification we only see part of the screen at a time. So if you picture how if you're on your mobile device and you're zooming in as a sighted person on your browser, you can only see part of the page at a time. Well, that's how we as visually impaired people experience the computer, because most of us prefer a full screen zoom. There's a few people that might like to use those settings where it's like the magnifier setting where it only magnifies like part of the screen is like a magnifying glass, but I personally can't stand that setting because it makes the magnifying window too small. It's too cumbersome. I would much rather just have full screen magnification. And kudos to Apple for having this all along. Apple has had, they used to call it close view, now it's just basically zoom or magnification, but Apple's had this built into all of their systems for years. And for many years, my best friend, hi Patsy, my best friend tried to convince me to go over to Mac. I was like, oh no, there's not enough software for it. And finally, about, when did I switch over? Did I say 9 years ago? I can't count. It was 2009. So oh my God, it's 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13. Yeah, it was 7. Apparently, I've lost the ability to count in the middle of the night, but it was 7 years ago that I defected from Windows finally. And the reason why I defected from Windows was because I was tired of having to constantly upgrade my magnification software at a cost, often over $100 in Canadian. It worked out to anywhere from $125 to $150 anytime I wanted to upgrade my operating system, because the magnification software, which is the most common one used, is ZoomText on Windows. You'd have to update it, otherwise it would often not work with the newer version of Windows, or you'd have conflicts and have the system freeze and all that sort of fun stuff, that the joys of Windows. So I got sick of having to do that. Now finally in Windows 7, and I realize now we're on Windows 10 or whatever we're on right now, but in Windows 7 Microsoft finally launched a proper full screen magnifier, but doesn't have all the bells and whistles that ZoomText has. So I still suggest, if you're new to being visually impaired, get ZoomText if you're going to be using a PC. But personally, I recommend Apple, just because even though it's more expensive to get the system, if you can manage that price, you're going to get more bang for your buck. You're not constantly having to upgrade your software every time the operating system updates. And even on Windows 7, when they did finally upgrade, I wasn't a big fan of their magnification software. But yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. So we use magnification, we use speech software. Sometimes people will use a brailler, but we can do a lot of things on a computer that a sighted person can. It just takes us longer. For example, my video editing takes a bit longer because I've got Zoom running in the background of all the video editing, and I'm only seeing part of the screen at a time. So sometimes that takes a bit longer, but I still do it, and I do all my own video editing. I read all my YouTube comments. Hopefully this clarifies it for you a bit better as to how we as visually impaired people use our computers. It's definitely possible. And I have to end this with a story, because I did mention a few vlogs ago about how, some crazy misconceptions. So I did mention already about my friend who, someone assumed he couldn't use a computer because he is blind. Me personally, the probably the most frustrating misconception I've ever experienced personally about myself and computer use was many years ago. I was applying for a job, and they said they were going to give me a trial. So they were going to have me come in for something like 2 or 3 days, and they were going to train me up and have me see how it worked out. So I would basically be working for free for a couple of days. So I was just fresh out of university. I had almost pretty much no job. Actually, no, I had no job experience whatsoever. And because being in university, And being visually impaired, it was like having 2 or 3 full-time jobs. All I ever did was schoolwork because it took so long to really keep up with all the sighted people. Because with, you know, I had audio books and whatnot that I used back in the day for university. But anyway, so I had no job experience. I was totally willing to, you know, do a free trial with these people. Well, as I was leaving, they introduced me to one of the girls that was working on the side, and she had a computer. It was looked like a terminal or a DOS type system. For the older folks will know what DOS is, what I'm talking about. But if you've ever worked in a call center, you might be familiar with the terminal type systems. So anyway, she was on a terminal system, and they said, "Oh, do you want to type on the computer?" They did not make it clear that apparently this was being a test, and they just said casually, "Oh, do you want to just try her computer?" I'm like, "Oh, I'll do that next time, you know, once I've had some training from you guys." Because I thought, basically where I was coming from is I didn't want to break the girl's computer because she was right in the middle of work. She had stuff on her screen that she was working on, and I didn't want to screw that up. So that's where I was coming from. So this whole thing was very casual and a little less than professional. But like, again, I was new to all this. So I'm like, I don't know. I didn't know what to expect. So, but they said, "Okay, we'll see you in a couple of days. So-and-so will call you." So I waited and waited, and I didn't hear anything. So then I called them. I said, "Hey, what's going on? Am I still coming in for this trial?" And they said, "Yes, you're still coming in for the trial, but so-and-so is sick." I forget the lady's name. This is like, probably 20 years ago that this happened. I can't count today. No, about 18 years ago that this happened. So long time ago. But anyway, so she said, "Yeah, this lady is sick. So when she gets back in the office and she's better, she will call you. Hopefully it should be towards the end of the week." I'm like, "Okay." I forget if I called them or they called me, but basically the end of the week came and I was set to go in. We'd made the arrangements. I was 5 minutes away from leaving to catch the bus, and I get a phone call, and she says, "Oh, you know what? Don't come in." And I'm like, "Okay, what's going on?" I feel like, you know, I'm kind of getting the runaround here. And that's when she fessed up and said, "Oh, well, we assumed that when you didn't want to use so-and-so's computer," so we'll call her Sally, "when you didn't want to use Sally's computer, that you needed a Braille keyboard." And so they didn't want to hire me because they assumed incorrectly that I needed a Braille keyboard. But even if I did need a Braille keyboard, so what? This was a position talking to people on the phone, and there are computer systems that you can have where you can get the screen to talk to you and so on and so forth. But they didn't even ask me. They just assumed, and I was heartbroken, and I was upset. I was pissed off, and I was just flabbergasted. And I'm like, I don't even remember what I said to that, but when we left it, I'm like, you know what? If these people are that ignorant that they're not even going to give me a chance because they assume incorrect things, and they assume that they don't want to hire me because they think I need a Braille keyboard, I don't want to work for them anyway. And I actually probably could have sued them, because technically that was discrimination, because number one, they said they were going to give me a chance, and then they decided not to without even really giving me a chance. You know, so I could have fought it and gone to court and all that stuff. I know a lot of people down to our south and the neighbors in the south in the US like to sue over stuff like that. But I'm like, you know, it's not worth the stress and the aggravation. So I just left it. And, eventually I did find an employer that was willing to give me a chance, which was awesome. But so if I seemed like in my previous video that I was a little bit defensive about misconceptions about blindness, that would be why. But luckily I've had, several employers since then that were really awesome and willing to give me a chance. But yeah, so that's pretty much it. I'm going to end this here because otherwise it's going to end up being half an hour again, and I'm going to be up all freaking night editing this video again because a lot of work goes into making these videos, and I just want to have a quick and easy night. So thanks very much for watching. I will talk to you in the next video. Here at Circle of the Blind Mice are bringing these videos because I believe technology enriches the lives of those of us with visual impairments. My mission is to help you learn tech, use tech, and embrace tech. Please share this video to help spread the word to your fellow blind mice, and if you're new here, please subscribe for new videos every Saturday. Thanks for watching.